Hello everyone, Raven here. We're getting into the first video. I went back, looked through the videos I did before previously, and realized I need to just restart. It didn't go well. I just had pretty bad mic at the very start. Started getting a better one. Now with what I've got now, I figured let's just start over, go from scratch. Also, I feel like in general I've gotten better at this, gotten more used to it. Still got a ways to go, but much more improvement from what I had. So we're going to start today going through some of the basics with writing. So this is pretty simple, basic stuff. General, nothing in particular yet. Because today, it's that idea there is of there are rules, but they don't mean anything. There are no rules. Which really you could say is just true in general. Because, I mean, think about even the law. Yeah, you can't kill someone, but self-defense, and you got a bit of an exception. Same kind of thing with writing, the way it works. There's some places in which you can make it work, some places you can't. But what to remember is, with writing, the rules are there to help you, particularly when you're starting. Don't just set them aside and they're not there, or even take them lightly. Especially when you're starting, stick to them, hold them tight. Only use them when you kind of need to. Most of the time, they'll still fit, they'll still work. Main problem is not so much a breaking rule, but breaking too many. People often get upset with things that are cliche. However, every story's got its cliche things. Really, it's not that everything can't be cliche, everything has to be original. It's that you just got to make sure you've got at least a few things that are unique. Something in there that's gonna really make it stick out. Something that's gonna pique people's interest more. That doesn't mean you can't have anything. That's just a norm. You know, better not to make the norms too significant or too primary. And in the same way, following the rules is kind of keep away from doing that. Not always, but often. There's the other rules where it's more about the fact that it can get you sloppy if you're not following them. Where take it too lightly and you're going to go through without putting much effort into keeping it consistent, keeping it following the other rules. Because you break one too lightly, it's going to make you lead on to break others. Thinking about it. It's always good to keep that in mind. Watch out for that. But just so you know, when I'm doing these videos, this is your usual kind of rules. Tricky part of this is to know when to make the exception, when not to. And that's one thing I'll try to get into in the other videos, but understand whether or not I do, every one of them, there's going to be at least one exception. Don't think because you can't follow the rule in a certain spot, that's it. You gotta just throw it out. No, not like that. A lot of times, when you can break a rule and make it work, good sign. Those are the things to watch for. A lot of times it takes a lot of testing to make it work, to find the right way to do it. You might break the rule the first time and it causes the very issue the rule's there to prevent. But keep at it, keep trying, playing with it. You can start to find, okay, here's the way to make it work. Here's the way to keep it from being an issue. And so sometimes it's just a matter of testing. But you got to keep your eye on it because that's where the issues can come in. And that's where you've really got to put the extra effort to really make it work. It's going to be interesting going through these because the other part of this is what's going to work for you and your writing. Not just because everybody's got their own style, that's part of it. But the other thing you got to remember is the rules do depend very much on the genre and the form. You go into a fantasy, or do a sci-fi. Sci-fi, you got to make sure you're consistent and you're following the rules. Fantasy, you got a little more leniency. Still good to set rules, but you're not as limited as to what those rules can be, and you're not as limited as far as when you can break them. Sci-fi, you got to be a lot more strict. So it always varies. That's one thing about this that can be tricky. I say different authors, different styles, and different genres. So one author gives you a certain rule. You gotta watch if their usual genre is far different from yours. You gotta make sure that rule does apply within yours. And you gotta make sure you know, okay, maybe there's a different form of rule for the one you're writing. So, to make it clear to everyone, what I write, primarily poetry and novels. Also some short stories. Now within them, poetry, I primarily do free verse and a form that's a little bit more unique. It's one I pretty much started while I was working on my master's. And time being, I like to call it cryptic. I haven't really come up with a good name, so for now I just call it cryptic poetry. But basically, it's one where there's multiple ways of reading. In other words, the way it's formatted, the way punctuation's used, things like that, it can section it off so that you can read it multiple ways. And actually find more than one poem in one poem. The others I write are, I love to do occasional prose poetry. I also love blank verse. Those are the primary ones I do. As far as rhyming, with sonnets and other things, I don't do as much of that anymore. Used to do that a lot. But that's not one that I really push. As far as my fiction, my novels, pretty much always fantasy, with occasional exception, sometimes just drama, literary. I just find when I get a unique character, I like to write about that character. When it comes to stories, I usually go down the road of fantasy. In short stories, I usually do magical realism. In particularly short stories, that's my favorite. Done it occasionally in longer stories, but I just feel like short stories is where it fits better, where it's more in place. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, isn't familiar with the genres that well, best example I can give that's more well known by a lot of people would probably be The Green Mile, where you've got a pretty standard normal world setting with a bit of surreal, magical, fantasy, supernatural, etc. thrown in one spot. With Green Mile, almost everything in it is it's a drama. You got that little element of magical thrown in. That's what I love to do with my short fiction. That's basically what I do. Free verse, blank verse, cryptic, magical realism, fantasy, and occasionally drama. So always keep that in mind when you watch my videos. that's what this usually applies to. Now, into a few other things. I have tried streaming again, and I'm very pleased. With the new setup, the new way of lighting the new video, as you can see, this is a little bit of a weird look, because I can't do much light. But I found some settings in a camera that help give a better image within the kind of lighting I can take. So I tried doing a stream for a few hours. Went far better than any other I've tried in the past. So I'm hoping to stick to it. So under the same name, Ghosts of Reality, I have started doing on Twitch. I'm going to be doing it on every Monday right now, Pacific time, 11 to 2. If that goes well and I find I have time, I may also do it on Wednesdays. But for now, Mondays. And occasionally maybe just jumping in if I feel like it. What I hope to do on those streams is primarily I'll be doing it working on my poetry. Possibly giving some challenges. Maybe talking about things like this. Mostly I want it to be chat. Just talking about writing. Maybe talking about books, poems, movies, games, just stories. So I'm starting that. First time will be this coming Monday unless I find some extra time and I decide to jump in. I do have links. Put them in the description. I also put them on the channel. Hope this is helpful. You guys can go and find your craft in your right forms. Hope I can help in doing that. God bless.